And the crowds that went before him and that followed him were shouting, Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. Verse 10. And when he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred up, saying, Who is this? In the last verse 11. And the crowd said, This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth of Galilee. Now at this point in time, what you need to know was that Israel was looking for someone to come in and save them. But not for the reason that you think. Rome was so oppressive on Israel. They were so oppressed in their taxes. They had to pay. So I mean, can you imagine, right now, they take taxes out of our paycheck. When we go to the store, they tax us again. And so we feel the tax. But in that time, the taxes were tenfold. They were taxing them to the max. They were so oppressive on them, it was almost like slavery. And so these people were waiting for someone to come and save them. They needed a king to come and save them. And so when they saw Jesus coming in on the donkey, they were thinking, he's the one that's going to come. And he's going to deliver us from Rome. But the thing about it was, he wasn't what they were looking for. I want you to know that he was better. And you know, sometimes when we're going through something, we cry out to God. And we're asking him for help. Now, I don't know if you know what Hosanna means. I've sung it in plenty of songs. But growing up, I might as well have been saying banana. Right? Because Hosanna, banana, I had no idea what I was saying. I don't know if you know what you would be saying if you were singing the song. But as I looked it up, I realized that Hosanna literally means save now. And so when they were crying out, Hosanna in the highest, they were crying out, we need help. 911, we have an emergency. We need some help right now. And they were crying out to God, Hosanna in the highest. I don't know if you've ever been there, but I think back to one of the first times in my life that I thought I was crying out. When I heard from my dad and I got the phone call that he only had 6 months to live, I found out what it means to cry out to God, Hosanna in the highest. To know that my dad wasn't saved at the time. His heart was far from God. I know what it means. And I'm sure that you've been to the point where you know what it means to cry out for God. And maybe he didn't come through the way that you wanted him to. Maybe he wasn't what you were looking for. But this is what I want you to see. While they were waiting for a king to come in and deliver them from the oppressive power of Rome, he was coming in to deliver us from the sin of eternity. And so he was coming to save us, to die on the cross. And so although he wasn't the king that they were looking for, he was greater. He was all that and then some. He was more than what they were looking for. And what you need to know is that even though he doesn't come in the way that you want him to sometimes, he is always what you need and then some. He is always more than you need. And no matter what you go through, he's always more than what you need. It doesn't matter the very details of, you might have a headache and it might be bad and you can't concentrate. God wants to hear about that. And so he's concerned about the details of our lives. And he set this whole plan up so that one day he could come in and he could save us. And so as he's riding into Jerusalem, can you imagine them putting the palms down, the palm branches and the jackets down? If you were walking down the street and someone were to lay their jacket down before you, what would you think? Man, they're showing me some honor. If they're laying stuff down before you, you probably think, I could get used to this. But as Jesus was riding in on the donkey and they were putting the stuff down before him, the same people that laid their cloaks before him, a week later would be the same people that would yell, crucify him. Because they didn't realize that he was everything that they needed. And he was coming to do more than what they expected. And he does the same thing in our lives. He saves us from the grip of death. And here's the last point number 3 as we wrap this up. Jesus wants to disrupt your life. Jesus wants to disrupt your life. When he gets to Jerusalem, the first thing he does is he goes to the temple. We pick it up in chapter 21, verse 12. And Jesus entered the temple. That was the first place that he goes as soon as he gets into Jerusalem. He goes to the temple. What does he find there? He finds these guys that are in the temple, these money changers. You know what they would do? If someone would come to the temple to offer a sacrifice to God, what they would do is they would say, you know what? Your money is not the right kind. Here, let me change that for you. And they would have a system set up that they would rip the people off right there in the temple of God. And so Jesus goes into the temple, and it says that he drove out all who sold and bought in the temple. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold pigeons, ripping people off that were coming to know about God. They were trying to find out more about God. And here these people were ripping people off. And in verse 13, it says, he said to them, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer."